Hey, can you guys hear me? Amazing. My name is Courtney Toll, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Nori. Nori, spoiler alert, is iron spelled backwards. We're a clothing care brand creating tools designed to increase the longevity of your wardrobe, but we're best known for our handheld steam iron that is called the Nori Press that removes the necessity for an ironing board. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. My name's Jerel. I'm the head of growth at TUSHY. We are the modern bidet company. We're looking to make bidets ubiquitous in America. Just walking around today, a lot of you guys seem to be confused about bidets and what they do. So that's the challenge of our marketing. And yeah, we're looking to bring like 6% market penetration up to like 70% in other parts of the world, like Japan, in the US and Canada.
Is this on? Cool. Hey, everybody. My name is Paige. I'm the VP of Acquisition and Paid Media at AG1, formerly called Athletic Greens. I've been there about 8 months. Prior to that, I led marketing over at True Classic, a D2C men's apparel brand.
Amazing. So today we're going to have a conversation that's kind of a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of performance marketing and a battle that I think a lot of founders and marketers face of trying to balance performance and high conversion rates with content that feels really native to a brand. And sometimes there's quite a bit of conflict there. So I'm going to start with sort of like a broad overarching questions for both of you about how you want your customers to perceive your brand and how that's changed over time.
Yeah, so TUSHY's been around for 10 years now. I would say about for the first 5, it was that one SKU is the TUSHY Classic, and it really accelerated during COVID with the toilet paper shortage, and it was just a bidet you put between your toilet seat and the knob was out to the side. So that's probably the most famous silhouette that you guys have seen. Starting last year, our product innovation roadmap has been crazy, to say the least. We have, like I was just telling Paige, we have 3 new product launches in 2 months this year. Last year we launched bidet seats for the first time. And what's happening when we're expanding our offering is that we're now selling bidets for $189, for $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, and we'll keep raising up in price tiers as we get more advanced. What we're finding is that the marketing is not always the same and the branding is not always the same when it was, just a $99 quick cute bidet you just put between your toilet seat, right? So for us, we're moving to like a more product superiority branding phase where it's less about the tongue-in-cheek TUSHY that I know a lot of people love and the SNL TUSHY that was like made a joke of in New York, and more about just being like the best-in-class offering for people who are looking for a more comprehensive clean in the bathroom. So that's kind of changed the way we think about our ads, how we present our brand. We want to be core to our ethos and our brand pyramid and still have that tongue-in-cheekness and funniness and approachability. But we also want to make our customers sure that we're delivering a quality product, that when you install it, it's not going to blow up your bathroom. Your plumbing isn't going to go everywhere. So we want to be trusted, and we want to be known as the best in the category. So that's how we've kind of evolved, I would say, in the last year or so.
Amazing. And Paige, to kind of like blend into that at Athletic Greens, obviously ads tend to drive like the initial impression of a brand. How do you balance thinking about performance marketing and how you're presenting the brand?
Yeah, definitely. I would say 2 things. I mean, I think first and foremost, I think there's a way to do it both in one ad, to do brand really well and performance really well. And when I was at True Classic, I think there was a couple of good examples where we were able to do this, where we would shoot something more highly produced with a story arc. True Classic was very into humor and kind of cheekiness and making people laugh, and they found a way to tell that story and create that emotional connection with people, but also really drilling in on the product benefits. Like the story was built around the benefits that product offers you, right? It's a t-shirt that's tighter in the arms and looser in the torso, so it looks more flattering on your body. And so that tends to be my preferred way to find that right balance, where whenever you can try to achieve both at the same time or in one ad is a really effective way to do it, but that isn't always possible. So when it's not possible, just being really intentional about what your desired goal is and what stage of the funnel that you're at. With a brand like AG1, we have ventured into much more of this brand building space where we are developing assets that are just purely brand ads. There's no call to action. There's no hit on benefits. It's really trying to evoke an emotional connection. It's trying to resonate in a deeper way with people, so they connect with us. And that's been talked about at times in earlier sessions, but that can be a scary leap to make for brands. But I think to your initial question of, what do we want to be perceived as, we're entering into this era where we really want to lean into mornings. And for those who don't know, AG1 is a daily health drink. It has a multivitamin, pre and probiotics, and other nutrients in it. And it's typically a drink you take in the mornings. And so we really want to lean into sort of the optimism of the morning, and be sort of that starting point where you start your day, you begin habits with that first act that is in service of your health. So trying to tell that story more intentionally has been a fun part of the process to integrate into our marketing efforts.
Really interesting. I think all of us have probably been there at a time when you start to have an ad take off, and for one reason or another, whether it's the comments that it's getting or the way it's being perceived, or maybe it has old messaging that is no longer in line with your current sort of brand market-facing voice, and you have to make the decision of do we let a top performer run or do we cut it? So I'd be interested to know from you guys, what is an example, and I'd love to hear stories of what the ad was, where you had to go ahead and put brand first and pause the top performer.
Yeah, that's a great question. I can think of two examples on our end. The first is we always try to, in some way, without showing an actual butthole, show the thoroughness of the clean. And don't kill me if you've still seen these ads out. We're slowly phasing them out, but we sometimes use a fruit to kind of show that. The problem with that is it does show you the difference, but when it comes to growing a brand and balancing that brand and performance, a lot of it is mental and physical availability. On the mental availability side, it's when someone thinks about their problem solution, when they think about your category, do you come to mind is number one. And then number two is when you do come to mind, how do people think about your brand? So it fails the test at number two in the sense that so far as the memory structures we're looking to build with our prospective customers, it's when you think of TUSHY, I would hope that the first thing you don't think of is that fruit being sprayed with a water gun with fake poop on it, right? So we've made strides with our brand team and our performance marketing teams to phase out of that, and making the decision to turn an ad off is such a jarring situations at times, especially ads that have been running for a really long time. But I like to say, if you don't challenge your teams and challenge yourself to think about that next thing, then you're already behind the eight ball, right? So there will be something else that will rise to the top. You take a lot of shots on goal, there will be that 1 out of 10 that will, be that new winner. So that's one. The other thing too is we had an ad running for a really long time, and I'm not saying that offers aren't good. I think if you know your unit economics, you know that your offer is sound and profitable, and you know that it's a good hook for acquisition, by all means, continue that offer. But if the best ad in your account is for example, for us in the summer of last year was just buy 2 bidets for the X price, and it was a super markdown, and our account was really spending largely behind that ad. And it wasn't because that there isn't something else that could drive down our CPAs or something else that couldn't scale. It's just that Facebook takes it very literally. If you're asking for the lowest cost acquisition, here's the lowest common denominator. Here's your offer ad, right? And so we made a decision to turn that ad off, not because it wasn't working and not the unit economics wasn't sound. It's just that it was prohibiting our team from thinking about new winners and new approaches without giving away margin to present our product in really meaningful ways. And rest assured, we did find new winners that weren't markdowns, that weren't like buy 2 bidets for the price of 1, right? So I think of those 2 instances as like really good real life examples for us where we're able to just challenge our team to think a little bit more deeper about our product and how we want to present it.
Yeah, no, love that. I think two examples for me that come to mind. I mean, one just at a high level, we don't discount our product, which is a pretty firm line that we just don't go there. We're a premium product. We're a high quality product, and we don't want to discount. Which being in charge of acquisition can be a challenge, right? Because I think we all can recognize that like people love a good deal, and it can be a good lever for acquisition. What we will do is do add-ons, get a free welcome kit, get a free D3 or Omega. So there's ways around it. But that's one kind of compromise that we make on behalf of the brand is like, this is the standard that we've set. We're not going to deviate from it. People should know to expect that. The second is, have any of you in the last few months, year or so, seen a sticky note type of ad? Like brands using sticky notes. I see some heads nodding. That's actually performed really well just across many accounts. And we did have some live that were performing well too. And it became a discussion internally for us between our brand and performance team is like, is a sticky note premium enough for us to be putting out into the world? And it was a healthy discussion, right? It's subjective. I think you can make an argument for either one. But we ultimately decided that we want to limit that and turn those ads off. And it was a judgment call that we made. And I think it then just becomes about like, well, how can we come up with ideas that have similar or better performance? We brainstorm ways like, a whiteboard could be another way to go after it that feels maybe a little bit more premium because people usually use whiteboards to write out their workouts. And, we speak to athletes. So maybe that would resonate in a different way that would accomplish a similar goal. Or maybe we can just kind of lay it out in a different way or through a static image. So that was a compromise that we made. But it's just important to have that communication internally with your brand team and also to try to get ahead of it. And we do that in some ways as well, which I'm happy to speak to if we get to it.
I think that's really interesting. And I am finding that as our brand grows, these conversations are coming up more and more as I think our brand identity is a little bit more baked. I'd be interested to get your opinion on sort of like the day one or even like $0 to $10 million brand versus above. And how that conversation sort of shifts the importance of prioritizing brand over sometimes just finding that perfect or best converter. So for example, like in the early stages of your brand, do you think it's okay to just be throwing a lot of shots on goal and try a bunch of different types of content? Or do you think it's really important that you prioritize brand in your creative from day one?
Yeah, I think I love that question. I was at an agency like 2 gigs ago, and like those $0 to $10 million growth programs were like the most interesting because sometimes you may pay like an agency to create this really shiny brand new brand identity. You get a really nice logo out of the box, and it's like, this is our brand identity, and you're just starting up, so you're just like focused on aligning with that. I think that between $0 and $10 million, you should have that pyramid, you should have that equity scheme, but you should try to flex the bounds of that as much as possible and take as much risk as possible. I think that when it comes strategically to when brand matters the most, at least from the experience that I've had, is like when you're either repositioning your brand based on how your portfolio is evolving. So, for example, TUSHY went from average order value $99, $100 to now going towards $200 because the product portfolio has evolved a lot. We're offering, higher priced products. We're taking a new stance on how we're presenting those products to people. So I think that's when brand becomes really important too. And then also like when you get to the point where distribution becomes like that next step for your company, you'll find that, if you're going into Target, you're going into Walgreens, you're going to sell in retail, it's like, having a strong sense of what your brand is and knowing how people perceive your brand is really important. And that's not, only how your brand is perceived, like on a shelf, for example. A lot of these retailers care about that. Your packaging, they care a lot about that. They care about what TV ads you run, oftentimes, if you're looking for those bigger buys, multi-store buys. So that's when it's like there's no choice, right? So I think that there is a little bit of flexibility at the beginning, but as you grow and you're going towards those like $50 to $100 million marks, like that's when you need to have that alignment across the whole team.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think you should always be taking shots on goal, whether you're a $0 to $10 million brand or a $600 million brand. Like that should never stop. But I think you can take more shots on the brand and performance side in those early days to help you figure out what is your tone, what are the brand guidelines that you want to adhere to. As you get bigger, that's when more of that structure around brand guidelines and the personality of your brand becomes clearer. But if you're not taking big swings in those early days and learning how your customer's reacting, then it's going to be harder to learn that and have a perspective as you get bigger. I also would say, as early as you can, really lean into consumer insights. Make a consumer insights hire, get that data, learn about your customer, learn about their preferences, their behaviors, who they are, how they react to things, and that's only going to help you and sort of be the data that helps then inform the brand guidelines and gives your team the structure that it needs to kind of shoot within the bounds. But I think it's often like it's the acquisition team's job to try and push the boundaries, right? And it's kind of the brand's team's job to keep you within bounds. So there's sort of a healthy tension there that when done right is really effective. As long as you're collaborative and respectful and hear each other out, that tension is actually quite important, I think.
Are we good here?
If you have one more final question, go for it.
Let's talk quickly about comments, because I feel like we've all dealt with the Facebook trolls. And interestingly enough, one of my products was Oprah's Favorite Things. We licensed the Oprah's Favorite Thing logo to use in ads, and it was our top performing ad ever, but I have never seen such cruel and horrible comments ever, to the point where we were like, I think we should maybe just stop this campaign altogether because we don't like the rhetoric that's happening around it. So I would love to hear your opinion really quickly on how to deal with comments when they start to come in, negative or positive or misconstrued, and what levers you use to decide when is it time to call it on an ad.
Yeah, it's funny. I want to say this like on a tactical level. A lot of the times, like the ads that are scaling in your account, that are getting the most spend, that are getting the most results, that are the most worn in, that have been running for months and months and months, are where like the conversation that your teams need to be looking into are happening, right? So for us, it's like with something so like foggy as bidets, where people don't even have so many questions about the product, like how it plugs in, like does it need electricity, is it warm water, cold water? It's like those conversations are happening and are opportunities for you to answer questions and ultimately can convert sales. And then there's also like really mean stuff that happens in the comments that are unrelated to anything that the product has to offer, but there are those trolls, right? So like having a process in place, and we can talk about this maybe after in the question section, to moderate that properly and make sure your teams are plugged in are important. And also engaging in conversation on those ads that are spending the most in your account are getting seen the most in your account. So you need to be there all the time. So we make an effort to engage when it's productive and eliminate and moderate when things are not so helpful.
Yeah, I agree. And it's where your customer support team is so important, and to engage with those comments, like you said. But don't just engage and say, like, if there's a positive comment, saying thank you, we appreciate your support, but like ask a question back. If somebody's like, oh, I love the way AG1 tastes, it's like, cool, thank you. How do you take your AG1? Do you put lemon in it? Do you put protein powder in it? Like, that's a question we ask internally all the time as like a icebreaker. Conversely, if someone's like, I really don't like the taste of your product, which we also get, throw out some suggestions. Like we hear a lot of our customers find that when they add lemon to it, it really helps, or, throw out ideas like that. And so that's starting a conversation, which, to your point, is going to help the algorithm, right? Because it's more engagement, it's more comments. If they reply to that comment, that's another signal to Meta that that's, an ad to be prioritized. So I think really leveraging your customer support team is super important. And in our case, like we won't delete comments. Even if they're super negative, we won't delete them, because that's another kind of important part of the brand, is like being in the health space. We don't want to come off as deceitful. We're not deceitful. We're not hiding things. Like, we want people to be able to express their opinions if they have them. And sure, we'll evaluate if it happens to get really nasty on a certain ad. Like, that's a good barometer that maybe we should turn the ad off. And in some cases, we will do that. But we won't, intentionally delete comments like some companies do, which I'm not saying that is inherently a bad thing, but it's a judgment call that, you should make.
All right, we have a few minutes left for Q&A. So do we have any questions? Yep, right here in the back, and then we'll go up there and back there. Those will be our 3 questions.
Thank you both so much for sharing all this insight. It was really, really useful. Can't wait to take it back to my team. I'm curious, have you ever seen, and this is a little bit of lead, and you have answered this already a little bit, but love to expand on that. What is an example that comes to mind of when you really hit it out of the park with brand and performance on a single ad, and like, how did you scale that across how you were running things in your ad account?
We had an ad actually that myself, my senior marketing manager here on our team, and our CEO thought would never work in our account, and it was actually like a old Tushy, like comedian hire influencer. It was supposed to be funny. And it also featured our new product, our electric bidet seat, non-electric bidet seat, Wave. And like, it's this woman who like runs out of her house to her husband sitting in the car, and she has the bidet seat like around her neck. And she jumps into the car and she's like, I can't go anywhere without my Tushy. That doesn't make sense at all, by the way. You wouldn't carry the seat with you. So it's not functional. It's not like you could do that. If you do want to do that, we do have the Tushy Travel, if for those who are affordable. But the point was that, not that it was like a functional claim, it was just that she was basically saying she would only want to use the bathroom in a bathroom that has a Tushy. And that's like the sentiment that was felt. So I think that was like the perfect mix of like a really like textbook performance marketing, like kind of like UGC-esque skit, also with like the old ethos of comedy of Tushy. And it was like the perfect mix of like, cool, like whitelisted content, UGC style, it's funny, it features our brand new product, and it was like everything was working together. But we didn't know that would work, and that goes back to take a lot of shots on goal, like challenge your team to think about innovative things, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But what we'd rather do is take those net new shots rather than just like going down the rabbit hole of something that just historically has worked because it's comfortable.
All right, our next question, right in the front.
So Paige, this is more for you. You said you're running brand ads and like working on ramping that up with no CTAs and stuff like that as a brand building tactic. What KPIs are you using to determine success of that, and how are you using that to really fill the funnel down to performance and like balancing that within an acquisition budget?
Yeah, definitely. So we look at a couple of things. One would be trying to measure qualified site traffic. So if you can see that if you have a metric for engaged sessions, which can be any number of criteria to tell you if that's a higher quality session, one KPI would be to see that increase over time, directionally, to understand if that the brand ads that we're doing are performative from that standpoint. This was mentioned earlier, but we'll also look at some of the Google metrics like search volume and run recurring studies to understand the impact that has. And then we have a brand tracker. So we're always measuring awareness, favorability, familiarity, and getting really data-driven with those metrics to understand if the different creatives that we're putting out that are brand focused are moving the needle on those metrics as well. And then we'll just run it as a separate objective. Like you all, I'm sure, are familiar with Meta, right? Like you can do a brand awareness objective, a traffic objective, video views, run your ads there, attach a brand lift study to it, and track it that way, and just try to take it out of the CAC conversation in the short term. And then post-purchase survey is also a great gut check for looking at your more traditional brand channels like TV, and looking at that first touch question of how did you first hear about us, to directionally understand is our investment in TV with our brand ads kind of moving the needle in the right direction.
Wonderful. Thank you. And last question in the back. Did you have a question still?
Yeah.
Was that you who raised your hand?
Just when you're saying taking shots on goal, how many, what's the structure of that? What kind of process are you following around that?
Yeah, you could definitely find me after because I have a long process here. But yeah, we have a creative testing campaign. We have a scaling campaign. We're testing a bunch of concepts per week. We have a performance creative call on Monday. We ideate with our team. We include brand people in those conversations, and then we task our creative agencies and our growth team to deliver on turning those ideas into reality. And we do try to launch at the end of the week, the next tranche of ads. When things hit our scaling criteria, we move them into winning campaigns and we scale from there. But I think the key thing, if you want to take home, is if you're making a set of ads, just make sure that you're not just iterating on 100% of them week after week after week. So we try to prescribe a little bit of hey, we want 20% iterations this week, which are just how do we get more out of this concept, and we want to test 80% net new ideas that we haven't had in the account, and that balance kind of keeps it fresh over time.
Wonderful. Thank you. Big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much for everything. You guys can leave the mics on the chair.